Hey there, my name is Philipp and here's my plan to go to every country in the world.
In this video, I want to share with you the story of how I got to this point and what my next plans in relation to this goal are. When I was 16 years old, me and a friend of mine counted to how many countries we'd been to. And we didn't think much of it at first, we were just two teenagers that liked geography.
So we made it a little challenge. We wanted to see who could visit more countries. And looking back now, I think I might have took it a lot more serious than her.
I spent my summer vacation with my family in southern Germany, and there's this little country called Liechtenstein, which was about a 1.5 hour drive away from where we stayed. Now, you have to know that for a family there isn't really much to do in Liechtenstein, but I got to convince my family somehow that it's a really good idea to go.
The only problem was my sister hadn't brought her ID on this vacation. You don't actually need an ID or a passport to cross borders in Europe, but it's still illegal, and we were leaving the European Union where there might be border control, so my parents didn't want to go without my sister's ID.
So we had to go to another city in Germany to have the federal police issue a preliminary passport for my sister, for which we needed my uncle back home to take a picture of her birth certificate.
It was a complete mess, but we ended up going, and I would consider this the trip that started everything.
I then started looking for more countries nearby that I hadn't been to yet, and Luxembourg was pretty close to where I live in Western Germany. So I asked my girlfriend at the time if she wanted to go to Luxembourg with me for a day, but she thought it was a stupid idea, just like basically all of my friends. But the one friend that I was counting countries with said let's go, so I was off to my country number 16. On this trip I had the second moment that changed everything. I had downloaded this app where you can mark the countries you visited, and while we were on the train I showed this app to my friend, and she had this uncle that she always said he's been to so many countries, it's incredible. So she told him to download the app and mark all the countries he had been to.
And it was 102 countries, and I was blown away. I remember exactly the moment when she showed me the screenshot of 102 countries. I didn't even know it was possible for normal people to visit 100 countries or more.
So when I arrived back home, I did some research. What's the most number of countries someone has been to? And that's when I found this guy, Sal Lavallo. There were many news articles about him at the time because just a couple of weeks before, he finished his goal to visit every country in the world.
And I was flashed. I couldn't believe it. Someone had actually visited literally every country in the world. And he wasn't even the first or one of the first people to do so, as I later found out. So that's when my research started again. How many countries are there? How long does it take to visit every country? And how much does it cost? I really spent months researching everything about this topic. So in the end of 2017, 16-year-old Philipp, who had been to 17 countries, decided that he would try it. I wanted to go to as many countries as possible, possibly even every country in the world.
The 17 countries I visited until then were Germany, Austria, the Netherlands, Spain, Italy, Belgium, France, the United Kingdom, Turkey, the United States, Denmark, Switzerland, Slovenia, Croatia, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, and the Bahamas.
I know that's not a bad start, especially for a 16-year-old, but there was still a very long way to go.
Since I was just a couple of months away from graduating from high school, I decided that in 2018 I wanted to visit as many new countries as possible with the limited time and money that I had. Luckily, my family decided to try out what a vacation on a cruise ship is like, so we went on a 1-week cruise where I could add Estonia, Russia, Finland and Sweden to my list. And to celebrate our graduation, me and a friend of mine went on an Interrail trip where I could add Portugal, Monaco, Ireland and Norway to the list too. For the next 3 years I traveled here and there a bit. I didn't have too much time because I was in university, but I always tried to visit new countries when I was planning a trip. So when I went to California with my girlfriend in 2019, we crossed the border over to Tijuana in Mexico. Or when I went to Vienna, I crossed over to Slovakia and Hungary. I did another Interrail trip to Italy to visit San Marino and the Vatican, and then I flew up to Prague to visit the Czech Republic and Poland. I also went on a road trip all the way through France just to visit Andorra, which was the only country that I was missing in Western Europe. I went to Bulgaria with my girlfriend and did a road trip through Iceland with my sister and 2 friends. And also I finally went to Brazil for the first time in 2020 after wanting to go for so many years.
So by the end of 2021, I had visited 37 countries. Real quick side note, if you enjoy these videos and want to join me on my journey to every country on the world, please subscribe to this channel. It would literally make my day. And as a little thank you, here's a picture of a cute little dog. Until the end of last year, traveling had always been a second or third priority for me.
But that was about to change in 2022. After also finally catching COVID in Brazil in January and going back home for a month to take my last 2 exams for my bachelor's degree, I decided that this year I want to double my country count. So the new goal was 74. The original plan was to have the focus on finishing Europe, but with the war becoming more and more probable while I was planning my trips, I decided to postpone it for now and go to Latin America instead. Until then, in all of the Americas, I'd been to Canada, the United States, the Bahamas, Mexico and Brazil.
So after spending a lot of time on Google Maps and talking with a few friends, I decided to book a flight to Chile, country number 38. After visiting the beautiful cities of Valparaiso and Viña del Mar, and of course the capital of Santiago, I went to Argentina to go see Buenos Aires and fly a trike for the first time, then Uruguay, a very peaceful country, Paraguay, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia. Then I flew to Santo Domingo to meet with my friend Luca, who also wants to go to every country. We took a bus from the vacation paradise of the Dominican Republic to Haiti, the other side of the island, which is by far the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere and a completely different story from the Dominican Republic. After that, we went to Venezuela, which is a beautiful country, and after me going to Panama, the first really big adventure of 2022 was over. Just a few days after returning back home, I went to Malta with another friend of mine to celebrate his very first flight of his life and my milestone of visiting 50 countries.
I had almost finished South America at this point. The only parts left on the continent were Guyana, Suriname and French Guiana. However, French Guiana, being an overseas territory of France, was not to be counted for this challenge. It was the end of April 2022. I had been to 50 countries.
And I knew I had around 3 weeks in the end of May and the beginning of June to travel, and I had 8 countries left in the Americas.
Guyana and Suriname in South America, and Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala and Belize in Central America.
I had a decision to make. I figured that for Guyana and Suriname I would need around 10 days. Since it was really hard to find another country to add to this trip, this would mean that I would basically have to waste 1.5 weeks of time that I could use to visit new countries. The other alternative was Central America, however I figured that I would need at least 4 weeks to travel the remaining 6 countries. So I let the flight prices decide, and what should I say, I found a round-trip connection from Germany to Panama for $400 US. And if that's not a sign from the universe, I don't know either.
So I looked how far I could get from Panama in 3 weeks without rushing too much and decided that El Salvador is pretty realistic. I looked for buses to all the countries in between and a flight back from El Salvador to Panama, and a couple of minutes later the next adventure was booked and 4 new countries were ticked off the list.
And this brings us to today. It's the beginning of July, the first half of the year is over now, and these are my stats for the first half of 2022. So far in 2022 I visited 22 countries, of which 17 I visited for the first time. That means for me to reach my goal of visiting 37 new countries this year, I still need to go to 20 new countries in the second half of 2022. So here's the plan of what you can expect on my daily Instagram stories and other channels in the next 6 months. For this month, I've already booked a trip to Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Albania.
In August, I want to spend some time in the Middle East. I was thinking about going to Lebanon and Syria with a friend from Brazil, and also another friend really wants to show me Tel Aviv and Israel, and because it's close, I'd combine that visit with Palestine and Jordan. If this doesn't work out as planned, I might also go to Latvia and Lithuania in August. In September or October, I would like to do a trip through Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar and the UAE. Egypt is on the list too. And in November or December, I want to finish the Americas mainland with 2 trips, one to Belize and Guatemala and the other one to Guyana and Suriname.
If some of those plans don't work out, alternatives include the Balkan states, China and North Korea if they open up, Jamaica and Cuba, and maybe Iran and Iraq. My estimate is that for visiting all the remaining 141 countries, I will need around 2 to 3 more years. So if you don't want to miss out on any of this, subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Also, here you can see how I eliminate basically all of my accommodation costs on my travels using couch surfing, and below that I'll tell you everything you need to know about interrailing, which in my opinion is the best way to travel Europe.